Good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. Cary Gans, and as some of you may know if you've watched my Facebook Live presentations before, I'm a dentist here in Garden City, New York, directly across from the new Neiman Marcus around Roosevelt Field, right around the mall. The phone number you can see is on the screen, 516-741-1230. If you need help, if you need a second consult or something, and or just have a question about what we talk about today, please give me a call. If I can't speak to you then, I'll be happy to give you a buzz back. Topic for today is dental implants. And what I normally do is do these Facebook Lives when a patient comes in and asks me questions. And since they're asking the question, I have to assume there are many of you out there that have similar questions in your mind. So it's just my way of getting more information out to the public. And last night we had a new patient who needed an implant in the lower left molar region, just one implant. And that's the simplest one to describe. So here's the basic process. In case you're thinking about having dental implants done, we're going to start with the simple, because then you can extrapolate, obviously, to the more complex. So for the simple one-tooth replacement, once the tooth is removed, there are two options. Your surgeon, it may be a periodontist, it may be an oral surgeon, it may be a general dentist, will decide whether an implant can be placed directly into that socket, into that hole that's left after the tooth is removed, or if that hole has to fill up with healthy bone or augmented with additional bone before an implant can be placed. That is a technical decision made by your dentist, by whoever's placing the implant. Some of this relates to where the nerve is in your lower jaw, as an example. Some of it relates to the width of the bone, the height of the bone, etc. So it may be placed immediately, or you may have to wait for that bone to fill in for several months until that bone is nice rock solid so that the surgeon could go back in and place the implant. So let's assume that all of that has happened and the implant is going to be placed. Now let's go with the second scenario, which is the more common, where the bone is now healed, the gum tissue is healed, and you're ready to have the implant placed. Most of the time, this is done in the dental office under local anesthesia. There are times when you may want to have it done under a general anesthetic, and that's up to the dentist who's placing it. But for the most part, I would imagine most places today, they're done in the office under local anesthesia. But now the surgeon will go ahead and place the implant. And a dental implant is basically a fancy screw. And they place this in your jawbone in the proper location under very guided technique so that there's no heat generated and your success rates can be very high. The implant is placed into the bone, and then either one of two things will happen. The gum tissue will either be covered over it, or you'll be left with a little healing collar, a little metal collar showing. That is also up to the surgeon. It depends on several technical factors. Oftentimes today, you're left with that little healing cap at or above the gum line, so that no second surgery is indicated. If the implant is placed under the gum and no healing cap is placed, well then, after a suitable period of time, in the lower jaw today it's 3 to 4 months, in the upper jaw it's 4 to 5 months. That also varies depending on technique and the surgeon that's placing the implant. If the implant is buried under the gum, then a hole has to be made to expose it, and then a healing abutment put in, which then needs a couple of weeks to heal. So once all of that is done and you have a healing abutment showing and you're ready to be restored, then a dentist such as myself, or it may even be the dentist that's placing it if it's a general dentist, will take the healing cap off and put in what's known as a transfer coping. Transfer coping basically helps us to relate the position of your implant in your jaw to a model in an exact and very precise manner, so that once we have a model, it absolutely, with every detail, will represent what your implant looks like in your mouth. Then the laboratory can fabricate a restoration, and that varies dentist to dentist. The restoration may be something where an implant abutment is screwed into your implant. Let me take a step back. After the impressions are taken, using that transfer, typically the healing abutment will be put back in, and you'll wait until the dentist is ready to put the restoration in. Sometimes that implant can be loaded the same day. There are other techniques, but I don't want to confuse you. I want this to be real basic and real simple. So we're back to the restorative visit. There are two types of restorations. For the most part, they can be placed on a single dental implant. One type of restoration just means that the porcelain and the metal that gets placed in your jaw is in one piece, and through a hole in the top of that crown, we screw in that restoration, and then we plug up that hole with composite, tooth-colored composite filling material. The other type of restoration is where we create what's known as a custom abutment, something that gets screwed into your implant, that gets screwed down, and then a cap is placed on top of it. There are technical reasons why one is done versus the other, and also personal preference. Some dentists like to screw the restoration in. Some like to screw the abutment and then put the cap on top of it. Sometimes it relates to the aesthetic zone where you don't want to have that little hole showing through the top, even though we cover it with tooth-colored resin. Once again, sometimes it's objectionable to the patient, so we'll make the other type of restoration, which is an abutment with the crown on top. Now, one other important factor, and we're going to close this off today, the concept of retrievability. It is my personal belief, and this is my personal belief as well as many of the dentists around the country, that implant restoration should be retrievable, regardless of which type is made. The reason is that any screw can loosen. It can happen a week later, it can happen 5 years later. There are lots of forces generated in the mouth, 800 pounds per square inch or something like that, that are generated on your teeth when you bite, when you clench, etc. So there's always a chance that the screw that's holding either the abutment into your implant or holding the cap into your implant, that screw can loosen. If the original crown is permanently cemented, the one where you have the abutment and the crown on top, if that crown is permanently cemented, we normally do not have access to go back to that screw holding the abutment in your jaw without cutting off the crown, which means you have to replace the crown, and there's an additional expense. So when there's an abutment with a crown on top, I always cement it with a strong temporary cement made for dental implants. Now, the two words you must always remember never to use are the words always and never. So there are times in the aesthetic zone or where the implants are very short or the abutments are very short that we're forced to cement it permanently. But that's very rare, at least in my practice. Once again, I'm talking for myself. I'm not talking for anybody else. The type of restoration where that gets screwed into your jaw and then there's a filling place to seal up the hole, well, then all we have to do is take out the little plug, tighten the screw, put another filling in, and you're back in business. So retrievability is an important concept, at least in my mind, when it comes to dental implants. And it's something I do not violate. We try to figure out wherever possible to get it to a point where we protect the implant, we protect the restoration, and we protect you from additional cost and additional trauma. Retrievability gives you peace of mind, because if anything does loosen at any point in time, a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever later, you know that we can always get back to it. And the chances are it's the abutment that's loose, not the implant. So retrievability to us is an important concept. That's it. Implants today are very highly successful. There's minimal discomfort if done correctly. It's a great restoration. And years ago, if you had a missing tooth, we'd have to prepare caps on either side, place a missing tooth in the middle, make 3-tooth bridge, cement that permanently. There is no such thing as permanent cement. All cements eventually can wash out. They have a lifespan, and then the tooth is subject to decay. With implants, since there's no tooth structure, you can't get decay. So even if something loosens up or washes out or something, you have you're protected. You can't get decay in a dental implant. At least I hadn't figured out a way to do it yet. I'm just kidding. So anyway, that's all there is today about dental implants. I just wanted to go ahead and give everybody a real basic entry into what implants are all about. They obviously get far more complex, but the basics are always the same. Whether you're having 1 implant or 10, the restoration may change, the process may change a little bit, but that's pretty much how implants are placed. Today, they're placed under very strict guidelines. Most dentists placing them follow those guidelines. The instruments that are used are dedicated to that specific implant. There are a number of implant systems out there today. Most dentists have a preference for one reason or another, for one system or another. We restorative dentists, I use oral surgeons and periodontists to place implants for me, I have to work with all the systems. And that gets kind of complicated. There are all different drills, all different burrs, all different screwdrivers. And it's like putting a jigsaw puzzle together. But that's not an issue for the patient. That's just an issue for those of us restoring implants. That's it. Implants are, once again, very successful. If you have a missing tooth, ask your dentist about putting an implant in. rather than preparing teeth on either side or wearing something removable. Today, we can place implants almost with impunity, almost everywhere, with rare exception. If you want it done and are willing to have the processes done that allow us to regain the bone that we need to put implants in. Once again, this is Dr. Carrie Gans. If you have any questions whatsoever, please give me a call at 516-741-1230. We're located here in Garden City, New York, right across from Roosevelt Field Mall. Plenty of parking. We start early, we end late. And even if you're just looking for a second opinion because something's going on and you're just not sure about, just give us a call. We'll be happy to get you in. If you mention this video, that visit, the initial visit, is complimentary. So there's no cost to come in. We'll take some x-rays. We'll talk a little bit. And if I can help you, that's great. And there's no cost as long as you mention this video. That's the only way I know people listen to these things. So have a great day. Smile and ask your dentist about dental implants. Talk to you soon.